An estate planning attorney in suburban Chicago told me something I haven't been able to stop thinking about. She said that every week she sits across the table from two types of retirees. Both show up with roughly the same net worth, somewhere between $700,000 and $1.5 million. Both worked decades to get there. Both are nervous. Both want to make sure they don't run out. But when she opens their files, the difference is immediate. One file is 3 pages. A will, maybe a beneficiary form, a single retirement account statement. The other file is 47 pages, trust documents, insurance layers, tax projections, income schedules, transfer plans, contingency protocols for things that haven't happened yet and might never happen. Now, here's the part that stuck with me. She said the 3-page file and the 47-page file often belong to people with identical net worth. Same neighborhood, same generation, same starting line. But in 15 years, the outcomes won't even be close. The retiree with the thick file isn't wealthier because they earned more. They're wealthier because they built something behind the scenes, a set of financial systems that most people never see, never hear about, and never think to ask about. That's what this video is about. Not income, not luck, not even discipline in the way most people think about it. This is about infrastructure, the invisible architecture that quietly wealthy people construct and never ever discuss publicly. And I want to be clear about something up front. This has nothing to do with being rich. You don't need a 7-figure portfolio to build these systems. You need awareness that they exist because the financial industry has very little incentive to show you the full blueprint. They'd rather sell you products one at a time than reveal the architecture that connects them. Today I'm going to walk you through 7 specific systems, the actual infrastructure that separates retirees who stay wealthy from those who slowly bleed out. By the end of this video, you'll understand not just what these systems are, but why nobody talks about them. And if you're between 50 and 65 right now, this matters more than you think. This is the window where building this infrastructure has a multiplier effect. Wait until 75, and most of these doors are either closed or twice as expensive to open. This applies whether you have 300,000 saved or 3 million. The architecture scales, the principles don't change. Let's get into it. Most people assume that wealthy retirees stay wealthy because they made more money, or because they got lucky with the market, or because they had some advantage the rest of us didn't. But the research tells a different story. The Federal Reserve's survey of consumer finances consistently shows that households in the top 20% of net worth don't just have more assets, they have more layers, more accounts, more structures, more coordination between the pieces. It's not that they have better investments, it's that they built a system around those investments, a system that reduces taxes, protects assets, transfers wealth efficiently, and generates income from multiple sources simultaneously. Think of it like this. 2 people can own the same house, but one of them has a security system, a maintenance schedule, proper insurance, a drainage plan, and a backup generator. The other one just has keys. Same house. Very different outcomes when the storm hits. That's what the next 20 minutes are about. 7 systems. 7 layers of infrastructure. 7 things that quietly wealthy people build and never bring up at dinner, at the golf course, or even with close friends. And for each one, I'll explain not just what the system is, but specifically why wealthy people keep it private. Because the silence isn't accidental, it's strategic. The first thing secretly wealthy people never talk about is how they protect what they have. Not investment returns, not growth strategies. Protection. Here's why this stays hidden. Talking about asset protection reveals exactly how much you have to protect. And for people who've spent decades building wealth quietly, that's the last thing they want to advertise. Let me give you a specific example. An umbrella insurance policy that's a layer of liability coverage that sits on top of your homeowners and auto insurance. It kicks in when the underlying policy maxes out. The cost? Roughly $300 to $500 a year for $1 million in coverage. Some policies extend to 2, 3, even 5 million. Now think about what that means. For less than the cost of a monthly streaming subscription, you can protect your entire net worth from a single lawsuit, a car accident, a slip and fall on your property, or even a social media defamation claim. And yet, according to the Insurance Information Institute, fewer than 20% of households carry an umbrella policy. Why? Because no one talks about it. Your wealthy neighbor isn't going to mention over the fence that he's got a $2 million umbrella policy. That sentence alone tells you he has at least $2 million worth of assets to protect. But the infrastructure goes deeper than insurance. Quietly wealthy retirees also use revocable trusts to shield assets from probate, a public process that exposes your entire estate to anyone who wants to look. Some use limited liability companies to hold rental properties or business interests, creating a legal wall between personal assets and business risk. None of this is exotic. None of it requires a massive net worth. A basic revocable trust costs between $1,000 and $2,500 to set up. An LLC filing in most states is under $500. But here's the key insight. The people who have these structures almost never volunteer that information, because every layer of protection you mention is a layer of wealth you've just revealed. That's why this is thing number one, not because it's the most complex, but because it's the most deliberately hidden. The second system is one that wealthy retirees treat almost like a trade secret, their tax strategy. Not I use TurboTax, not I have a CPA. I mean a coordinated, year-round tax optimization routine that most people don't even know exists. Here's what that looks like in practice. Between the ages of 59 and a half and 73, there's a window, a specific window where strategic Roth conversions can permanently reduce your lifetime tax burden. A Roth conversion means moving money from a traditional retirement account where you'll owe taxes on every withdrawal into a Roth account where qualified withdrawals are completely tax-free. The trick is doing it in years when your income is lower, typically the gap between retirement and Social Security or required minimum distributions kicking in. During that window, you might be in the 12 or 22% tax bracket instead of your working years bracket. Convert strategically during those years, and you lock in a lower rate on money that would otherwise be taxed at 24 or even 32% later. Over a 20-year retirement, the difference between an effective tax rate of 22% and 14% on a portfolio of $800,000 is roughly $64,000. That's not a rounding error. That's years of living expenses. Then there's tax loss harvesting selling investments that have dropped in value to offset gains elsewhere in the portfolio. And bracket management, carefully controlling how much income you recognize each year to avoid jumping into a higher marginal rate or triggering Medicare surcharges known as IRMA, the income-related monthly adjustment. Amount, which is essentially a stealth tax on higher income retirees. Now, why don't wealthy people talk about this? Simple. Revealing your tax strategy reveals your income. It reveals the size of your accounts. It reveals your bracket. And most importantly, it reveals that you're actively engineering your financial life in ways that most people aren't, which creates social friction. Nobody wants to be the person at the barbecue explaining Roth conversion ladders. So they stay quiet, the optimization runs in the background, the savings compound invisibly, and the gap between those who plan and those who don't grows wider every single year. The third system is one that touches something deeply personal, and that's exactly why it stays underground. Quietly wealthy retirees don't just give money to their children and grandchildren. They build automated systems for transferring wealth, and they almost never discuss the details with anyone outside the immediate family. Here's the framework. The IRS allows an annual gift exclusion, currently $18,000 per person, per recipient, per year. A married couple can give $36,000 to each child, each grandchild, each son-in-law or daughter-in-law every single year without filing a gift tax return or touching their lifetime exemption. For a couple with 3 adult children and 4 grandchildren, that's up to $252,000 per year, moving out of their taxable estate and into the next generation, completely tax-free. But it's not just direct cash. Wealthy retirees fund 529 education savings plans, tax-advantaged accounts specifically designed for education expenses. Some use donor-advised funds, which allow them to take an immediate tax deduction while distributing the money to charities over time on their own schedule. The system is automated, predictable, recurring, not a one-time holiday check, a structured transfer pipeline. And here's why it's secret. Money transfers within families reveal hierarchies. They expose who gets more and who gets less. They create expectations, entitlement, and in some cases, resentment. A grandparent funding one grandchild's 529 plan, but not another's, isn't just a financial decision, it's a family event. So the wealthiest retirees build these systems quietly. The transfers happen, the tax benefits accumulate, The next generation receives the infrastructure, often without fully understanding how deliberate and systematic it actually is. They're not generous once, they're generous systematically. And the difference over 20 years of compounding is enormous. Now, if you're watching this and thinking this sounds like something only millionaires need to worry about, let me push back on that. Every single system I've described so far has an accessible version. An umbrella policy costs less than $500 a year. A basic revocable trust is a one-time setup. Roth conversions can be done in small amounts, $5,000, $10,000 at a time. The annual gift exclusion applies whether you're giving $18,000 or $1,800. Remember the estate attorney's 2 files? The 47-page file didn't get thick because the client was rich. It got thick because the client made decisions, one layer at a time, one system at a time, over years. The infrastructure doesn't require wealth. It requires intention. And that's the real reason most people don't have it. Not because they can't afford it, but because nobody told them it existed. We're about halfway through, 4 more systems to go. And the next one is the one that most people avoid thinking about entirely. The 4th system is the one that quietly wealthy people plan for obsessively and discuss almost never. Healthcare contingency architecture. Not health insurance, not Medicare. I mean a layered plan for the financial catastrophe that long-term care represents. Here's the number that should get your attention. According to Genworth's most recent cost of care survey, the median annual cost of a private room in a nursing facility in the United States is over $108,000. A home health aide runs roughly $65,000 a year, and the average duration of long-term care need is just over 3 years. Do the math. That's potentially $325,000 or more, and Medicare covers almost none of it. Most people don't discover this until they're already in crisis. Quietly wealthy retirees handle this differently. They research long-term care insurance while they're still healthy enough to qualify, typically in their mid-50s to early 60s, when premiums are manageable and underwriting is favorable. Some opt for hybrid policies that combine life insurance with long-term care benefits, so the premium isn't lost if they never need care. Others self-insure, deliberately earmarking a specific portion of their portfolio, often in conservative holdings, as a healthcare reserve. Not vaguely, specifically, with a number attached. And those who had access to health savings accounts during their working years, they maximize contributions and let the balance grow tax-free for decades, creating what's essentially a stealth retirement healthcare fund. Why is this never discussed? Because talking about long-term care means talking about decline, dependency, loss of autonomy. It means acknowledging that your body and your mind may not cooperate with your retirement plans. For a generation that values independence above almost everything else, that conversation feels like surrender. So they plan for it privately, thoroughly, and they never bring it up. The 5th system brings us back to where we started, that 47-page file on the attorney's desk. This is where most of those pages live. Estate structure, not a will. A will is a starting point necessary, but by itself, it's the 3-page file. What quietly wealthy retirees build is an architecture of control and distribution that works before, during, and after their lifetime. At the center is typically a revocable living trust. Unlike a will, a trust avoids probate, the court-supervised process where your assets, your debts, and your beneficiaries become public record. In some states, probate takes 12 to 18 months. In all states, it costs money, typically 2 to 4% of the estate's value. A revocable trust bypasses that entirely. Assets transfer immediately, privately, according to your exact instructions. But the architecture goes further. Beneficiary designations on retirement accounts and life insurance policies need to be aligned with the trust, and most people never check whether they match. A misaligned beneficiary designation can override your entire estate plan with a single outdated form. Then there's the question of successor trustees, powers of attorney, healthcare directives, and for larger estates, irrevocable trusts designed to remove assets from the taxable estate altogether. Now here's why nobody talks about this. Estate planning means deciding who gets what and by extension, who doesn't. It means confronting questions about fairness between children, about providing for a surviving spouse without disinheriting the next generation, about what happens if a beneficiary has addiction issues or a volatile marriage. These are the most emotionally loaded financial decisions a person can make. And wealthy retirees make them quietly with their attorney behind closed doors because the alternative is a family negotiation that nobody wants to have at Thanksgiving. The 47-page file isn't bureaucracy, it's architecture. And it exists precisely because its owner decided that control after death is worth the discomfort of planning before it. The sixth system is one that hides in plain sight, and it's the one that creates the biggest misconception about wealthy retirees. Most people think wealthy people have a financial advisor. One person, one relationship, one phone call when something goes wrong. That's the 3-page version. The 47-page version is a coordinated team, a CPA who handles tax strategy year-round, not just at filing time, an estate planning attorney who reviews documents annually and adjusts for changes in law and family circumstances, and a fee-only fiduciary financial advisor, meaning someone legally required to act in your interest, not someone earning commissions on products they sell you. The key word is coordinated. These three professionals talk to each other. The CPA tells the advisor how much room exists for Roth conversions before the next bracket. The advisor tells the attorney when a beneficiary change is needed. The attorney tells the CPA how trust distributions should be reported. That coordination is the infrastructure. Without it, you get what most people have: 3 disconnected professionals, each optimizing their own piece, none seeing the full picture. The tax savings from thing number 2, the transfer strategy from thing number 3, the estate structure from thing number 5. They all require coordination to work properly. Without it, you're managing a system by accident. Why do wealthy people never mention their team? 2 reasons. First, describing your advisory team reveals the complexity of your financial life, and complexity signals wealth. Saying my estate attorney and my CPA are coordinating on my trust distributions is a sentence that broadcasts a net worth north of $1 million. Second, and this is more subtle, admitting you have a team feels like admitting you need help. For a generation that built everything themselves, that feels like weakness, so they keep it quiet. They show up to the CPA's office alone, they don't mention the advisor at parties, and the coordination happens invisibly. The result? Everyone else thinks they're doing it alone. They're not. The 7th and final system is the one that changes daily life more than any other, and it's the one that wealthy retirees guard most carefully. Income stream diversification. Most retirees have 1 or 2 income sources: Social Security and maybe a withdrawal from a retirement account. That's the standard model. It works until it doesn't. A market downturn cuts the portfolio, an unexpected expense forces a larger withdrawal. Suddenly, the math doesn't hold. Quietly wealthy retirees build something different. They build what I call an income stack, multiple independent income streams designed so that no single source carries the full weight. Here's what a typical stack looks like. Layer 1, Social Security, but timed strategically. Every year you delay claiming between 62 and 70 increases your benefit by approximately 6 to 8% annually. Delaying from 62 to 70 can mean the difference between $2,100 a month and $3,700 a month. That's not a small adjustment. That's a 76% increase in guaranteed lifetime income. Layer 2, systematic withdrawals from a diversified portfolio structured to pull from different account types in different tax years. Traditional accounts in low income years. Roth accounts in high income years. Taxable accounts when capital gains rates are favorable. Layer 3, dividend and interest income from investments held specifically for cash flow, not growth. Treasury bonds, dividend-paying stocks, real estate investment trusts. Predictable. Recurring. Independent of whether you sell anything. Layer 4, for some, rental income or part-time consulting, not because they need to work, but because an additional income stream reduces the pressure on every other source. A retiree pulling $7,200 a month from 4 sources has a fundamentally different risk profile than one pulling the same amount from a single account. If one stream drops, the others carry the weight. The system absorbs shocks. And why don't they talk about it? Because describing your income stack is describing your financial life in high definition. It tells people exactly how much comes in, from where, and how it's structured. For someone who's spent decades keeping that information private, sharing it feels like handing over a blueprint to their entire financial architecture, which of course is exactly what it is. So let's come back to where we started. 2 files on an attorney's desk. Same net worth, same generation. One is 3 pages, the other is 47. Now you know what's in those pages. Asset protection, tax optimization, automated wealth transfers, healthcare contingency planning, estate architecture, a coordinated advisory team, and a diversified income stack built to last decades. 7 systems, 7 layers of infrastructure, 7 things that the quietly wealthy build deliberately and never discuss openly. And here's the part that matters most. None of these systems required extraordinary wealth to start. They required awareness. They required a decision to build the architecture before the storm, not during it. And they required the kind of patience that doesn't make for interesting conversation, which is exactly why no one talks about it. The financial industry sells products. It sells excitement. It sells the next big opportunity. What it almost never sells is infrastructure, because infrastructure is boring, it's invisible, and it doesn't generate headlines. But it's what keeps people wealthy. If you watched this far and recognized yourself in 3 or more of these systems, if you already have an umbrella policy, or you've started Roth conversions, or you've structured your income from multiple sources, then you're further along than you think. You're already building the 47-page file. You just didn't have a name for it until now. And if none of this felt familiar, if this is the first time someone walked you through the actual blueprint, then you're not behind. You're just at the starting line. And now you know what to build. You don't need all 7 tomorrow. You need 1. The first layer, the first page. Because the difference between 3 pages and 47 was never about money. It was about decisions. And that one you can make today.